Are all podcasts queer? Or is that just my niche of podcasts that I listen to and recommend? Welcome. I have no idea how long it is till one of my parents comes home or my brother. And I will have to stop filming because I feel awkward filming with other people in the house, which is also why I haven't really made videos during Corona. So this video is going to be high energy and fast, or at least I'm going to try to make it up. I like listening to podcasts. I think I've mentioned that before on this channel, and I realized yesterday that when I started listening to podcasts when I was about 13, 14, which means I would have been listening to podcasts for 6 to 7 years, which is like a quarter to a third of my life, which is ridiculous. So then I was thinking, how many podcasts have I even listened to? So I wrote down a list of all the things that I remember listening to, and I got to a list of 25 podcasts, which is ridiculous. But I am going to be telling you about these podcasts in what I remember of them. I'm not going to look anything up, and I will recommend them to you. First, we're going to do an honorary mention of two podcasts, which are the two podcasts that got me into listening to podcasts, but that don't exist anymore. So the first one, the one that actually got me into podcasts, was the People Watch Your Podcast by CJ Bissett. This was just like a talky thing, I think. This was in 2013, I don't remember. By CJ Bissett, he makes music. Check him out, CJ Bissett Music. Also the brother of Ariel Bissett, who makes videos on BookTube. He made a podcast and he just talked about kind of whatever. And that made me fall in love with podcasts. It discontinued in probably 2014, maybe 2015, which is sad, but it was a great time. Second is, I think it was called The Ghost Museum. It's by Chelsea and Jim, who have a YouTube channel, who also I don't think they do YouTube anymore. And they started a podcast together, which is the Ghost Museum, where they tell each other ghost stories, and it was extremely funny. Kept doing that until I think it was at least 2018, because I remember listening to an episode of the Ghost Museum on a bus from Quebec to Montreal. So that exists, and you could probably still find that somewhere, but they don't do it anymore. So we recommend that if you like spooky stories, but it's mostly humor based. But then when I got into, we're doing this in vague categories that I haven't fully thought of. So then I got into my first fiction podcast, which was Welcome to Night Vale. And recently, I was talking about this with a friend. Welcome to Night Vale has recently been getting a bit of meme status in a way that it's kind of cringy. It's kind of like Supernatural and Sherlock. And we're talking about it and we don't really know why, because it's actually just good. Right? My friend actually recently started listening to it, and she was still this actually kind of slaps, which I believe it does. I remember it doing. I caught up at some point and then stopped listening because I felt it kind of lost its I don't know how innovative it was. It stopped surprising me at some point. She made me be I don't know if I care for this anymore. So I stopped listening. But I really, really loved those first seasons, and I think Welcome to Night Vale is still, those first seasons are very much the niche of ridiculous shit that I love so much. If you don't know what Night Vale is about, it's a weird town, things happen weird, it's gay, it's kind of dystopia, I don't know, but if you've been I kind of want to pick up Night Vale, but it has a bit of a meme status, so I don't know. This is your shot to do it, because I think it's actually good. Which leads me to then the whole Night Vale Presents oeuvre. So first of all, this Alice Isn't Dead. Alice Isn't Dead is about a lady, I forget her name, and her wife Alice is missing, and she becomes a truck driver in order to find Alice. And it's a horror podcast. I think this is the first. People call Night Vale horror, and I don't think I agree because it's too lighthearted. Call Alice Isn't Dead a horror just apparently. Yeah, I don't know. I watched all of this and I thought it was quite good. There's one episode I remember when I had a paper round. I listened to that one like 3 times because I thought it was so good. I think it's the second season. They're staying at a hotel for a few days, and the two main characters, and 2 characters both go on a separate like weird journey in that hotel and meet other people. And that episode, I remember as being like one of the best podcast episodes I've ever listened to. So for just that episode, listen to Alice in the Dead. Otherwise, I don't remember it that well. Also, the first episode's really good, I think. Then I started listening to the Orbiting Human Circus of the Air, which is about an orbiting human circus on top of the Eiffel Tower in old-timey times. And the janitor is a protagonist, and he wants to become like a star in the show, I think. I've only listened to the majority of the first season, I think. Like that, like the whimsy of it, but wasn't super into it. But would recommend it if you like podcasts that have like vibes like they're in the 20s, 30s. And if you like more musical podcasts, like I seem to remember this has a lot of music in it, which I'm generally not about. But if you are, this might be for you. Then there's also Within the Wires, which is there's several seasons. I think there's 2 or 3. The first one is relaxation tapes for someone in like a mental hospital or something, but there's like a metal plot about the person who's listening to them. And I don't remember this one really well, but then season 2 is about a painter or someone who used to date a painter. A painter had just died. I also don't really remember the plot of that, but I remember thinking that was really well done. Like I really loved listening to season 2 of that, so I would definitely recommend that. And you can definitely listen to that without having listened to season 1 if the relaxation tapes bit is not something you are really into. I wasn't super into it. They are interconnected, but not entirely. And I believe there's a 3rd season about someone building orphanages, but I don't remember if that's part of season 2 or if that's a 3rd season. But I like that story. So I recommend this if you like a bit more low-key, if you like a dystopian kind of deal, if you like figuring out what's going on throughout the rest of a story. That one's cool. Then there's Dream Boy, which is in association with Night Vale Presents, I believe. I've listened to the first season. This one is very not safe for work. So if you're about that, listen to it. But I would listen to that at the gym. And I got a little bit uncomfortable listening to it around other people. It's about this guy that moves to a small town for his break as he works on an album or something, and he meets this guy on Tinder, and it's weird. There's a zebra that they want to break out of the zoo with the Girl Scouts. There's musical numbers at the end of it. It's really weird. Like a lot of these podcasts are gonna be weird because I like weird stuff. This wasn't exactly my type of weird. It had a bit too much in it I didn't love, but if you like NSFW gay shit in your ears, then maybe this is it. I don't know. Then also there's a podcast, Adventures in New America, which I don't know if that is Night Vale Present, but it has the same vibes to it, and I listened to it at around the same time. This is a dystopian fantasy futuristic Helio that I don't remember much of, other than that I like the world building. So if you like some whimsical weird world building, whoa, that was a hard sentence to say, wouldn't? If you're up to that, and of course it has, I believe, very good POC representation. Also everything is queer, but here's a real question: are all podcasts queer, or is that just my niche of podcasts that I listen to and recommend it? I have no idea. This one is. And then the last Night Vale to start with this. This is a nonfiction podcast by the 2 writers, I believe, of Welcome to Night Vale. where they give prompts for creating, and they talk about how hard it is to do writing, but also how to get better at it. I really listened to the first like 2 episodes of this. I really liked the idea. I didn't love how it was done because I felt like I wasn't going to do the prompts, and then what's even the point of listening to it? But if that sounds interesting to you, check it out. And this also leads me into my next part, which is non-fiction podcast. I don't listen to very many of them. I want to do an honorary mention to There's No Such Thing as a Fish, I think it is called. This is one of my friend's favorite podcasts. There's a lot of weird facts in it. I couldn't really get into it, but I've heard it's good, and it's probably just about the time that I tried it. Now, I didn't write these down in any good order, so I'm gonna look. What this goes into is McElroy family content. First of all, My Brother and Me, another extremely famous podcast. I guess that one isn't queer. About 3 brothers that do advice, but it's a comedy show, and it's really funny. I would say if you want to start with that one, start just kind of wherever. Don't start at the beginning. They say themselves, like, please don't start at the beginning, because in the beginning it was 10 years ago and we were a little bit problematic, but we've learned since. So I would say just start anywhere. You will get the concept. Like, it's not hard. Then another McElroy like content that I like to consume sometimes, I'm not caught up, is Wonderful, which Griffin does with his wife Rachel, where they just talk about things that they like and make them happy and that are wonderful. And I think that's really cute. I listen to this when I'm sad, and I think the good thing about this is it makes me, if I listen to a few episodes, I will start looking at things in my daily life and be like, oh, that's wonderful. That's something I really like. It makes me pick up on small things that I like a lot, which I think is a really good trait or habit to have. So I would definitely recommend listening to that one if you're sad, or if you want that in your own life. And there's also Sawbones, which Justin does with his wife, Dr. Sydney McElroy. They talk about medical history, weird medical things. She's a doctor, he does goofs. It's a good time. I am also not caught up with this one, but I really like medical history things. So I think this one's really good. Another one, I'll do a little bridge here to that one, is Medical Murders, which talks about, well, medical murders in the past, which I think is really cool. I think this is the closest I get to listening to true crime podcasts. But they're all medical related things. And they're very interesting. They seem very well researched. They're a little bit over dramatized. So if you get annoyed by the true crime-ish things, then maybe don't listen to this one. But I do think they talk about some very interesting cases, and I like listening to them. Last McElroy thing I listen to is the Adventure Zone. The Adventure Zone is an actual play podcast, D&D podcast. It's not really actual play, it's more towards the making a narrative. Like, they're very much playing it. They're very much doing it for the thing of, we're making a podcast that should be enjoyable to listen, which makes it much easier for me to listen to. I love D&D. I love playing D&D, but I'm really bad at listening to actual play. Like, I've dipped my toe into Critical Role, which a lot of people are excited about. But those episodes are so long and there's so much like world building going on that I just cannot get into it. But I think I like Taz. I mean, it's less actual good D&D, right? It's more, we're doing a comedy podcast with a story that also has some like gameplay elements. The only actual play podcast I listen to. I think this is the place where Stella Firma goes, which has vague Taz energies in the way that it's an improv comedy podcast. This is run by the Meredith brothers. They do a thing where they're on a planet creation company, and there's this guy working with this robot or clone. Well, what is David? David's a clone, I think. To make planets, and I think it's really funny. However, I think at least in the first season, because I don't know, I have only listened to the first like 10, 15-ish episodes. I think 10. I think it got a bit repetitive in a way that there's a clear formula to it. Every episode they make a planet. And the way they do it is really fun, but I can't listen to that podcast for many episodes in a row. I always caught up and I do it weekly, it would probably be fun. But it's not something I feel like I can binge, which means I haven't continued with it. Maybe I will at some point. I actually picked up Stella Firma because of the Magnus archives. This is my bridge between them. Do whatever you will. The Magnus archives you probably know of. Maybe, I don't know. It's a famous one, I think. It's a horror anthology podcast that's also an office comedy. Season 1 is about, John, who works at the Magnus Archive as the head archivist. He records statements of people who have come to the Magnus Institute to give their statement about a paranormal encounter they've had. Postscripts and such become a meta plot. Some people say not to tell people about the meta plot because it's a spoiler. They like going into it blind. Maybe that's true. I generally tell people there's a meta plot because that's what got me invested in the podcast. I don't think I would have listened to it if there hadn't been a meta plot, or if I hadn't known there would be a meta plot, I probably wouldn't have gotten to that point. And I've successfully gotten 4 of my friends into the Magnus Archive so far. It's extremely good. My friend and I, who are caught up currently at episode 194, have just started realizing that it's a tragedy. And that's bad. Then there's a few other horror ones that I like. There's the Blood Crow stories, which the first episode is about this student who's doing their thesis on tapes found from a cruise ship where everyone died. That season is incredible and very funny and very scary, and it has those 30s vibes that are really good. I started listening to the second season, didn't like it. But the first season is extremely good. Then there's the Black Tapes, which is about someone investigating paranormal shit. Couldn't really get into it, but liked the idea of it. So if you like the idea of the Magnus Archives, but you want more personal interaction with the archivist, basically, and some more real world feel, then listen to Black Tapes. Is there any other horror? Perhaps Death by Dying, as if you like Nightfall, but you don't want to get into that much of a podcast. There's only 5 episodes. The 5th episode will make you bawl your eyes out. Season 2 is coming though. I'm extremely excited about that. Death by Dying is about an obituary writer in a small town of Crashville, Idaho, who makes up weird shit. Deaths happen. He sometimes thinks they're supernatural. It's extremely good. It gets so fucking weird. It is perhaps my favorite podcast. There's only 5 episodes. Fucking listen to this one. Death by Dying makes me think of The Wooden Overcoats because the obituary writer, the actual writer of the show, ships his main character with Richard Fun, who's the main character of Wooden Overcoats. Wooden Overcoats is about the small island of Pittenville in England, where the Funs run fun funerals. We put a body in a coffin in the ground on time, where it's opened a second funeral home. Chapman's funerals, we put the Fleming funerals, I'm pretty sure. There's a rivalry between funeral directors in a small English town. It's hilarious. It's just so funny. Like British humor. If you like characters that are all kind of dickish, but still very lovable, I would very much recommend that one. Small shout out to Kingsville AM, which is kind of like Nightfall in a way that's a radio program in a weird town, but I've only listened to a few episodes. And there's a few that are sci-fi, probably, that are also some of my favorites. Left those to the last. The first of those is the 1237, which isn't actually my favorite. It's a time travel story. It's about a woman who gets onto a train, and fun fact, that train drives through time, and she meets people on that. I listened to all of that while painting my kitchen. I don't remember much of it, but then it's really queer and deals with mental illness in a really really good way. And I think it has an enemies to lovers kind of thing. It's pretty cool. Also very few episodes, you can listen to it in a day. Then there's Wolf 359, also a big one in a queer podcast fandom, I think. But a really good one. It's about the crew of the Festus, a few people in space, and it's an office drama, but it's in space. And also extremely interesting with capitalism and character dynamics and being stuck together in space. It's found family. It will also rip your heart out. And I was thinking about it yesterday, and now I really want to re-listen to it. But I shouldn't, because I'm re-listening to something else, and I want to start new things when Magnus is over and not re-listen to Wolf. But I really love Wolf 359. It's so good. It is also ended so you can listen to all of it, which is extremely cool. And then last but not least, my probably favorite piece of media in all time is the Penumbra podcast. The Penumbra started out as being individual stories. It's now 2 series. One of them is the Juno Steel series. Juno Steel is my favorite fictional character ever. Well, the favorite. He's the best fictional character ever. He's a private eye on Mars in the future, and he is depressed and non-binary. And I love him so much. His character progression is so good and so realistic, and he is so funny, and also it will rip your heart out again and crush it. And they make a lot of good jokes. It is just so good. There's other series which is also great. It is The Second Citadel. The Second Citadel is a fantasy world where there's knights and monsters, and they fight, and then they fall in love sometimes. It's about what monsters are, whether they're good. It plays a lot with stereotypes and minorities and oppression, because in the universe everyone's queer, and that means you don't really talk about it. Because if there's no such thing as sexuality, there's no such thing as, homophobia, which means you can't have an interesting conversation about homophobia in a world where it doesn't exist. Which means that you can have a lot of interesting conversations about other things. And the non-homophobia is amazing to see, but in the Second Citadel, they think about a lot of things, such as homophobia, ableism, things like that they can question very interestingly in that show, the way they can't do it in Juno. Also, again, extremely funny, sometimes heart-wrenching. Sir Angelo the Strong has my whole heart. He is such a himbo, and I love him so much. These two shows, 2 series, 1 show, I could probably talk about forever, but I'm not going to do that, because I'm going to end this video here. Probably my biggest recommendation are Penumbra and Death by Dying. Those are the 2 that I love the most, but I hope you have some use of these recommendations. I kind of only have the recommendations, I think, but that's fine. This is what we've done. If you have any other recommendations for me, leave them down below, because I need something to fill the void that the Magnus Archives is undoubtedly going to leave in my soul. I will see you again at some point. Goodbye.